بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اعبدوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الحدي حدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Now, as the final topic that we mentioned today is a discussion about Al-Jannah. And we felt that many times we find that we always concentrate on the things which scare people. The punishment of the fire, the evil things that will happen to a person inside the grave, and such type of torment, that many people like to scare people and feel that that will bring them closer to Al-Islam. However, sometimes we should mention the good things as well, to encourage people to come closer to Islam as well. And in everything there is a balance. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا, that we have made you the middle nation and a just nation. And we don't go to the extreme of the people who go to extremes in preaching certain things, and we don't go through the other extreme of being lax in our approach in the things that everything is fine and everything is acceptable. And this is the way of the Quran, the methodology of the Quran, بَيْنَ وَعْدٌ وَوَعِيدٌ, between a promise and a punishment. Likewise, targhib wa tarhib, between encouraging you to do something and encouraging you to stay away from something. Bashir wa nadir, warning you and giving you glad tidings of something. This is the methodology of the Quran. Likewise, we find وَمِن كُلِّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقْنَا زَوْجَيْنِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَذَكَّرُونَ, and out of everything we have created pairs. In everything, male and female, the plants, humans, everything there is a pair, the sun and the moon. This is the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And likewise we find there is a sunnah of heaven and hell, that there are two pairs created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we find likewise the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that amongst his tasks, and that brings to my memory that the uncle who asked the question about the one who says the salah, he has a right to intercession. You're right, there is a hadith, whoever gives salam and salam in the morning 10 times a day, and in the evening 10 times a day, then the intercession of the Prophet Muhammad has become obligatory upon the individual. This hadith is ma rawahu Imam al-Tabrani, and the hadith has been checked by the late Sheikh Nasiruddin al-Albani, and it is authentic. Whoever makes salah wa salam 10 times in the morning and 10 times in the evening, then intercession has become obligatory, or has become upon that person. That doesn't mean that we just rely upon the intercession. That means we also follow the other actions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. يا أيها النبي إنا أرسلناك شاهدا ومبشرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا. O Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, إنا أرسلناك شاهدا, we have sent you as a witness to mankind. And likewise ومبشرا ونذيرا, one who is giving good tidings and warning the people. وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا, and calling to the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you are the blazing sun. That you call people to the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So here we find Bain al-Bashir and Nadir. And some people, they write that these are from amongst the names of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Bashir and Nadir. That he is the one who's giving glad tidings, and likewise he is the one warning the people to stay away from the hellfire. Likewise another place in the Quran, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا كَافَةً لِلنَّاسِ بَشِيرًا وَنَذِيرًا وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Once again we have sent you to the whole of humanity, Bashira wa Nadira, one who is giving glad tidings and at the same time warning the people. Likewise in another place in the Quran we find إِنَّا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ بِالْحَقِّ بَشِيرًا وَنَذِيرًا, that we have sent you with the truth, and you're the one who gives glad tidings, and you're the one who is admonishing or warning the people to stay away from the haram things. And that's why we find that this was the task of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to يُحَرِّمُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْخَبَائِثِ. He makes the forbidden things or the filthy things haram for them, and makes that which is halal by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we find that this topic of Al-Jannah is something from the unseen. All of these aspects, we don't know nothing about it except for what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has described inside the Quran, or what the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has told us. And even when companions, when they mention about the unseen, even when they mention about it themselves, many of the ulama of hadith, they write that this is a form of hadith, because no companion will ever talk about the unseen from his own knowledge. It must have been something he heard from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's why he mentioned it. So even the statements that they make go back to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we find that part of belief, to believe in the unseen. This is the beginning of the Quran. Alif Lam Mim, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. This is the book where there is no discrepancy, there is no doubt. It is a guidance for those people who believe in the book, and those people الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ, who believe in the unseen. This is the beginning of Iman. So everything which is mentioned and described now is all from the unseen. أمور الغيبيات, unseen affairs that we don't seem to perceive, except for which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned to us. And many times words have been mentioned inside the Quran, talking about the trees in Jannah, talking about the women in Jannah, talking about the food in Jannah, and the names are the same as the names in this dunya. But their actual existence is totally something different, something that we cannot comprehend. Names have been placed there so we can to some degree maybe visualize or imagine it. But as we will mention, that Jannah is something that is beyond human beings' comprehension. And we find al-jannatu haqq wal-naru haqq, as the Prophet Muhammad would pray in his qunut as well, that Jannah is haqq, that Jannah is a reality, and likewise the hellfire is a reality as well. And that's why we find that people are amma sa'idun aw shaqi, that they are either going to be happy or they're going to be sad. There's only one way to go, either to go towards being happy or towards being sad. As for those people who entered into Jannah, then those are the people who will be happy. As for those people who enter into the hellfire, they're the ones who will be in a state of loss. And we find that many times the believer living this dunya at the moment, there seems to be no justice. That wherever the believer goes, ad-dunya sijnul mu'min wa jannatul kafir, that this dunya is a prison for the believer, wa jannatul kafir, and it is a paradise for the disbeliever. That even those of us who may be rich and have everything to our exposure, but still we are bound by the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That in the morning you have to still pray Fajr, in the evening you still have to pray Salatul Isha, you have to give zakah of your wealth, you have to perform Hajj. The rules do not change whether you're rich or you're poor. You still have to do these things. Rather, when you're rich, you have more rights to give to society and more rights you have to give to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As for these people, then they can do whatever they want to do with their wealth, and whatever they want to do in their life. That's why you find that some people, they wrote that some of the leaders, when they were traveling, a poor disbeliever came in front of the leader and said to him that, look at you, your deen teaches you to be humble and teaches you to look after other people, and look at me, I'm poor and downtrodden, but you're better than me. The leader said to him, no, you are better than me. Even though I'm rich and I have everything to my exposure, I still am following the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As for you, you do whatever you want to do whenever you want to do it. This is the believer forever bound by the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As for the person who is wealthy, then this is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ذَلِكَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ يُؤْتِيهِ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. That is a blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, gives to whoever He wants. And the upper hand is better than the lower hand. This is the real existence of the Muslim Ummah. That you find at times of the golden years, you read the days of the Khulafa al-Rashideen al-Mahdiyin, the golden years. You find that money became so much that you find that there was no one to take a zakah. That you'd go to one individual and give the money to them, and they said, no, I have money to give in charity. That nobody was taking the charity, that the Islamic empire reached such a limit. As for today, we find that many of the Muslim Ummah is starving, but yet nobody wants to help them. And the millions and the billions that we spend, if you see the lands of Khalij and the Emirat and all these places, millions they spend on the building of a stadium, and the rest of the money, they give a few thousand to here and there to keep the people pleased and happy. And if you read the story or the seerah of Israel, that these people, they don't have a national sport. They don't believe in a national sport. Every single teenager has to serve in the army, has to be trained to use a gun, even the women. And the Muslims have become so foolish that we don't seem to wake up.